Hello everyone, welcome back. So in my last sewing video, a lot of you asked me if that pattern was suitable for a beginner, and although it is on the simple side, if it's your first project, I'd suggest something a lot simpler. So today I'm just going to show you a very simple shell top and pencil skirt with a elasticated waist. First of all, when you're starting off sewing, I would suggest using felt. Because it isn't a woven or a knitted fabric, it doesn't fray, so you can make an outfit without hemming or anything like that. So you get an outfit a lot quicker, a lot easier, and it is very cheap as well, so it doesn't really matter if you ruin it. So I am doing this on the larger scale. That is another point for beginners. I've never actually sewn for a larger doll before, but I have heard from many people that it is a bit easier to sew on a larger scale. So this doll is 1/4, whereas Barbie is 1/6. So in order to use a Barbie pattern for this doll, you would need to print it out at 150%. So basically like if an inch becomes an inch and a half. So I have two colors of felt here. I'm going to use this cream white for the top, and I'm going to use this brown for the skirt and the shoes. And I have this elastic which came off a folder, and this is the pattern I have. So I made this pattern from a Barbie pattern. I removed the bits I didn't need because we don't need to hem or anything, so I just removed those pieces. I left the seam allowance, which was 1/4 of an inch, but because this is scaled up to 150%, it is a bit more than 1/4 of an inch. When I started off, I just used lead pencil all the time. I didn't really worry about these marks here. I do still use it sometimes. It just depends on the fabric and whether it will be seen or not. So those are our darts. So that is our top pieces cut out. And for the skirt, we are basically going to measure the widest point of this doll's legs, 21 centimeters. So we'll also need seam allowance. So I'll add an extra 2 centimeters, so 23 centimeters. And we'll halve that, so that will be 11.5 centimeters. And basically, we are just going to cut a rectangle. Also need to know how long it needs to be, so I want it to be just past the ankle. So from the waist, that will be 26 centimeters. And we are done, so it will be our top and our skirt. Okay, so now we're here at the machine, and I just want to do some like top stitching just to give it a bit of a nice look, I guess. Just make it look pretty. So I'm just going to do some straight stitching. So this is just the front of the skirt, and I'm just doing 2 straight rows. You could use a twin needle if you have one, but if you don't, then you don't. And you can just do 2 straight stitches side by side. And I also want to, on the bottom, do this stitch here, which is usually for blind hemming. Just think it makes it look a little interesting. And I'll do the same to the bottom of the top as well. So once we've done that, I want to actually come to the top, and we're going to sew the darts. Okay, and then we're going to attach the shoulder seam. Now you really should like pin the pieces together before you sew, but and then once you've done that, you can join the side seams. Okay, and I've just switched over to my brown thread, so I'm going to do that top stitching. Voila! We can now sew the side seams as well on the skirt. Okay, and then for the drawstring, we are going to fold over the top and stitch along there as well so that we can thread a drawstring through. Okay, and then we're just going to stitch the side seam up, but only to about there. Okay, and for the shoes, I have gone ahead and made a pattern, and I've already made one boot here. So to make this pattern, I just got a piece of paper and I traced around her foot on the side. I ended up with this here, and I added the heel. I then measured the circumference of her upper thigh, which then I halved and added onto the tracing I had of her foot, which was about 7 millimeters around the edge. And that's just so that that half of the shoe can actually fit around her leg. And basically I ended up with something like this. This is the sample I made to test it. And although it fit quite well, it looked a bit like a Christmas stocking. So I then quickly made a stencil for a toe piece. So basically I just kind of cut a shape and then put it on and see if it works. And as you can see, I then hand stitched this piece on. I hope you can see that. Anyway, let's get on. Now you can hand stitch this using either a running stitch or a back stitch. I usually just do a running stitch and then go back over, which I'll show you with the toe piece. Or you can hand roll if you do have a sewing machine, which I usually do for smaller areas. And then you just turn it inside out. Okay, so I'm just going to take a large-ish needle, then we'll take some thread. Fair amount. I just, to make my life easy, double it over. Then we'll just position it on the toe. And stitch. So I'm just doing a running stitch. So I'll go up and down as I go around. Pulling it nice and tightly every now and then. Not too tight, otherwise it will gather the fabric. And then back around a second time, just making sure that you cover the areas of the fabric that weren't covered with thread before, and then that will just give you a nice stitched line around the edge. And then we'll just tie it off, and then we'll just use our needle to pull those threads inside the boot. Okay, and there we have our boots. And as you may have noticed, I did clean up all of the thread. Okay, so that is basically it. Here is the finished outfit here. So the finishing touches were to elasticate the waist. Now that is a drawstring, so you can put just string or ribbon through there and tie it at the side. But I put in some elastic so it can stretch over her waist, like so. And the only thing left to do is to finish off the back of the top. So you can either do Velcro or snaps, or if you wanted a really professional look, you can do what I did and pop some pins into the back. You can easily decorate it by adding on some cutout shapes. You can cut out flowers or hearts or whatever and either glue them on or stitch them on. I have some scrap bits of fabric there. You could easily just stitch those onto here to create like a faux tassel. And then that would tie it in with the color of the shoes. I chose the darker color because it looked kind of like an extension of a skirt in this color here, and I didn't have enough of the white left. Now I will include the pattern for the top, skirt and shoes in the description below. So if you do want to make this for a regular 12-inch Barbie doll, you would just need to print it out so that the inch square on the page is around 2/3 of an inch. And then that should be in regular Barbie scale. So I hope you found this useful, or at the least entertaining, and I'll see you all next time. Alright, see ya.